Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. And so let me make sure this is coming out okay before I start. And it is live. And make sure my sound is okay. Good. And I am hearing sound. So I have a question. Honest question. Sincere question. Completely earnest question. And the question has a certain level of gravity associated with the question. Legacy media, mainstream media, for the last 8 months has told us Russia is behind all of this. Meaning Donald Trump and Russian government worked hand in hand, colluded to undermine Hillary Clinton, the most qualified candidate in the history of candidates in any sector of the universe. Now, in taking this narrative, anyone else who said anything else other than Hillary Clinton was the most qualified candidate in the history of the universe and that she was supposed to win that election, it had to be Russia. Russia colluded with Donald Trump to take the election and put Trump in that office. We've been inundated with this for 8 months. Every crook and crevice of mainstream media has talked about Russia hacking us. Anything said to the contrary is a conspiracy theory, and how dare you bring up conspiracy theories when Russia hacked us. Maxine Waters has lost her goddamn mind. Some of the Democrats were making the case of, hey, well, does this hack constitute an act of war? Does it constitute an act of war? They took up all the air in the room. Whatever happened to the Russia hacked us narrative? Where is it? Where did it go? The wheels fell off. Veteran intelligence professionals came out with a report, independent investigation, showing that it was impossible, that the narrative that mainstream media has gone with for the past 8 months was physically impossible. Think about that. We've been inundated with the narrative for 8 months. Mainstream media, the people who are supposed to tell us what's important, give us our view of the world. Mainstream media. And it was a farce. Real investigation, honest investigation, not just towing a particular narrative. Honest investigation, intelligence reports, looking at it saying, this is bogus. This is bogus. It is obviously bogus. It is physically impossible. And not just physically impossible, the information was changed in a way to make it look like Russia did it. Mainstream media told that narrative for 8 months. I want the gravity of that to sink in. I want the gravity of that to sink in. With all of the resources at their disposal, with all of the billions of dollars that they have flowing in and out of their stations, Russia hacked us. Is it the responsibility of media to toe the line for one of the parties, a defunct party? Or is it the responsibility of media? What I mean is, calling Trump and Russia put asses in seats. The majority of the country dislikes Trump. Now, if the majority of the country dislikes Trump, the media, for the most part, taps into that vein. So Rachel Maddow comes up with one conspiracy theory after another. They're talking about Trump and Russia, Trump and Iran, Trump and something else. The media of itself, CNN, will put on all these panels who says, yeah, we want to denounce Trump in every particular way. Substance has nothing to do with it. 8 months. Whatever happened to the Russian hacked us narrative? And shouldn't legacy media at the very least confront the fact that they failed miserably on a massive fucking level? Again. I want to nail that in, which is why I'm doing this piece. They failed again. Were there weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? Were there weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? Did the media toe the line and put out the propaganda information that the Bush administration put out saying there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? Did they deal with it critically and earnestly, or did they once again toe the line of the ruling power? I'm saying that that war, a war of aggression by the United States, attacking a government that had nothing to do with attacking us and murdering upwards of 1 million people. And to this day, we're still in the Middle East. Where's the accountability for media? I understand that George Bush was able to get away. What about the media itself that put that propaganda out? When Obama took office, he said, we're looking forward, we're now looking backwards. So I'm going to be okay with this particular guy torturing people and starting a war of aggression. We're looking forward, we're not looking backwards. There was no accountability, either from the media's failure, getting 1 million people murdered, or for the political failure. If new media has any responsibility at all, it is to break itself away from its forefathers. The forefathers that allowed shit like this to pass without kind of putting a nail in it, saying, wait a minute, somebody failed here. Somebody failed. It is our responsibility in new media to shine a spotlight on the failures of the legacy media. One of the failures has been talking 8 months about fake news. Talking 8 months about fake news. Meaning, the new system has to show the failures of the old system. And I would say one of a massive fucking failure on a massive fucking level was saying that Trump colluded with Russia to hack the DNC, to cheat the Democratic Party. The information being released being that they cheated Bernie Sanders, and that the Clinton Foundation was a slush fund, and that the Democratic Party was as bankrupt and corrupt as we thought it was. It was a leak. It wasn't a hack. Finding out it was a leak wasn't sexy enough. That wasn't sexy enough. That wasn't going to put asses in seats. What would put asses in seats is a foreign government hacked this country. Those have real world ramifications, regardless of whether it's true or not. Meaning, if the media did its job, the media would have known, or maybe the media did know, that 24 hours after the election, Hillary Clinton inundated with calls. I'm sorry you lost the reality show host. I can't believe you lost to reality show host. Jesus Christ, you lost to reality show host. Is there anything we can do for you? Because we're sorry you lost the reality show host. You can imagine getting a series of calls like that would be somewhat unnerving and would piss somebody off. I know. It wasn't that I lost to reality show host. It wasn't that people really disliked me, that I was the most hated candidate. It wasn't, nope, none of that. We need to get the narrative out that Russia hacked us. And Comey hit us in the knees, but Russia hacked us. That's the only reason why he got elected. He's illegitimate. Now, you can understand the Democratic Party themselves, meaning just the people who are voting. Those people were told it's a lock. Due to multiculturalism alone, just those factors, it's a lock. It is impossible for the Democratic Party to take over. It is a lock. You can go to home and go sleep at night. You don't even have to watch the polls. It is a lock. She is the most qualified candidate in the history of candidates across the universe. Don't worry, your little heads. It's a lock. It wasn't a lock. Her inevitability was put to the test, and it was found wanting, to say the least. Meaning she lost. She lost the reality shows. Now those people who were told completely it's a lock, Huffington Post had her winning 98% to 2% at the moment she lost. Those people were shattered. You can pick up the book. Now, the catch is, it is a self-serving narrative to say that my illusions of the world, them telling me that it's a lock, my understanding of the world wasn't wrong. It was a lock. It was a foreign government that had something to do with it. Now, they continuously use the euphemism, Russia hacked us, What they're saying, however, is Russia hacked into the DNC, released factual, true information to WikiLeaks. And releasing that factual and true information, people realized that the DNC cheated Bernie Sanders. So the place complaining that they were themselves were cheated, or cheating someone else, or cheated someone else. Not to mention Hillary Clinton was monetizing the State Department. Now, based on their theory of the case, people were so horrified by that, they recoiled and voted for Trump or didn't vote at all. It was a leak. It was a leak. It being a leak doesn't matter one iota because the information was factual and the information was true. But it was a leak. But it has real world consequences. So even though it was a leak, the media runs it for 8 months as if it was true, as if it was a factual thing that Russia had something to do with Trump hacking the country. They literally made it their narrative and tried to say that their narrative was some stand-in for actual reality. Now, I understand Democrats doing this, but media, that's what I'm getting at. The self-serving narrative was picked up by media. Now, the people who wanted to vote for Democrat, for the most part, they bought into the story because it fulfills their illusions that it was a lock and Hillary Clinton was going to win, and the only reason she didn't was because of Russia. It fulfills their illusions. That's the first point. Hillary Clinton makes a case about Russia hacking him because she didn't want to deal with the reality of losing to reality shows. Democratic elites goes with this idea because for them, again, they don't want to have the conversation about why they lost 15 million people and why they lost everything at every level of government. They want to talk about Russia hacking them and resistance. The media picks it up because it's self-interest. A, they dislike Trump. B, they want to tap into this vein of people who really dislike Trump. And yeah, they want to put asses in seats with the narrative. That narrative lacks immense context. Not to mention that the narrative has been proven to be untrue. 8 months. We're not talking about the stuff that actually affects people. 8 months. The wheels fell off. Mainstream media actually started to get stories. So Veteran Independence comes out saying, hey, here's evidence saying that that's impossible. The Nation magazine runs with the story. Bloomberg magazine runs with the story. Russia Today runs with the story. Some of the other progressive outlets started to run with the story. It was breaking. The wheels fell off. And the moment that the wheels fell off, this country is inundated with racists. They're everywhere. We have the uber racists. Look at them. They're marching in Charlottesville. The racists are marching. They're taking over. We're leaving the Russian story, not because the wheels were falling off, but because we have racists now, and we have to deal with the racists in our country. I say no. I say let's continue to have the conversation about Russian hacking. More so along the lines of, you failed on a massive fucking level for 8 months. They passed sanctions against the Russian government for something the Russian government didn't do. It's had real world consequences. You've allowed yourself to be used by a party. And yes, the using to some degree was self-serving, but still, the narrative that was put out wasn't interrogated. It was uncritically put out to the public as clickbait of sorts. They should be held accountable. Indie media, if it does nothing else, should hold them accountable. Every commentator, every magazine outlet should be screaming about it. 8 months. This is what we've been having the conversation about. Russia did something to this government that needs to be penalized. 8 months. And the narrative is broke. I'm amazed by this. I'm amazed by this idea that we can just jump to another story once the wheels fall off this story, and they're going to look back at this because it was done uncritically, because they moved to a different story, as if this is actual reality, that Russia has something to do with hacking the election. It doesn't matter that the wheels are falling off. I'm making this point that if indie media does anything, indie media needs to stick a pin into legacy media and needs to show their failures. So no, there weren't weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. No, the Syrian gas attack that took place wasn't from the Syrian government. More information came out showing it might have been from the rebels. Their idea of reality, the thing that they're shaping, I'm saying, is wrong. And it needs to be challenged as such. And this Russian hacking narrative that they've been putting out for 8 months is an amazing place to start. It's an amazing place to start. Billions of dollars. Massive fucking level. They didn't even ask the question, hey, why didn't you give your servers to the FBI? You're simultaneously saying how amazing the FBI is. They're beyond reproach, and yet you don't believe that they're amazing enough for you to give your servers to. That by itself was a little bit weird. The CrowdStrike thing being undermined across the world and not being mentioned in mainstream media. The other countries putting out reports saying, yeah, Russia didn't have anything to do with our elections either, despite what the United States was saying. Never came up. Seymour Hersh publishing work never came up. You're being lied to. And in being lied to, I'm making this point that mainstream media has agendas. Regardless of how they try to come across as being neutral, they're not neutral. All pretense of neutrality went out the window when Trump got elected. And I'm saying this is somebody who don't like Trump. Doesn't like Trump. If legacy media is good for anything, it's good for showing their failures. And I'm just making this point that new media needs to make a point of explaining their failures. It's not enough to say Russia hacked was the Russiagate thing was bullshit. And the last thing that should happen is allowing them to just skip on to the next story without putting a pin in the fact that they failed miserably on this one. These guys are failures. Billions of dollars that they get, and they were failures. And the question becomes, why are they failures? Does that have anything to do with the cash that's lining their pockets? Meaning they have a story that they want to make. Sometimes those stories coincide with assisting the parties because they want access to those other parties. There's somewhat allegiance there. But those are questions that should be asked about the integrity of the media itself. In the same way that an administration changing hands, meaning Obama coming in, if we honestly believe that it was a failure for Obama not to prosecute the Bush administration for the crimes of that administration, then certainly we have to believe it's a failure on us if we allow them to get away with saying Russia hacked us, allow them to pass sanctions based on this nonsense narrative of Russia hacked us, and to stick a pin in the fact that they failed for 8 months going with this idea of Russian hacked us. I think it's new media's solemn responsibility. If nothing else, it is our responsibility to do so. It's not enough to demand them to repudiate whatever they're talking about. I don't give a shit about their repudiation. I want to nail down the fact that they failed. There's a difference in those things. I don't need them to come to Jesus. I need us to be very clear that they failed miserably. That's what I need. So, I'll leave it at that, man. At 8 o'clock tonight, I have a thing coming up with, I'm going to have a live show. That live show is going to allow patrons to call in for the show itself. Everyone else can attend and everyone else can watch and everyone else can still do their comments in the console, chat console. But that's just a special thing for the patrons themselves. So, alright guys, if you enjoy the content, feel free to share, write, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the work through Patreon. I'm going to close this and I'm probably going to do another one after this one. I want to keep it relatively short because when it's like an hour long, sometimes people don't watch. Alright guys, see you in a few.